Hi, this is Dave Marotta, and you are watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. You know, a lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. Well, I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for people over 50 who want to learn to play bass, because I believe you're never too old and it's never too late to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. ForBassPlayersOnly.com. That's what we're all about. We've got a great guest this week, Dave Marotta. We did an interview about 100 years ago, I think. And boy, he's played with everybody from Kenny Loggins to Phil Collins, Burt Bacharach, B.B. King, Lionel Richie, Gino Vanelli, Neil Diamond, just on and on and on, plus a ton of film and TV scores. How you doing, Dave? Welcome back to ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
I'm good, John. Good to hear from you. And hey, I'm over 50 and I'm still learning how to play bass. So
we're all still learning.
exactly.
I read the interview that we did last time, and boy, it was your dad was a music store owner, and he was on the board of directors of the Monterey Jazz Festival, and you got to see Duck Dunn, and you got to see Noel Redding, and lots of cool jam sessions and things at your dad's store. And you told me about moving to LA and Neil Steubenhaus recommending you for gigs and playing with Gino Vanelli. That interview, by the way, was published on ForBassPlayersOnly.com on March 12th, 2012.
Wow, 11 years.
So anything new?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I'm still working. I just got back from a 1-month tour in Europe with my buddy Carl Verheyen.
Oh, yeah.
And that was really the first big tour since COVID for me. And it really went great. It's great to be out and playing live again. And people are really showing up for the shows. People are really hungry for live music again. Last night,
right? He was in Supertramp, right? Carl
yes.
Verheyen?
Yeah, he's been a longtime Supertramp guitar player. And Carl has probably 14 records out, which I've done 13 of them as a solo artist. And in fact, last week we were in the studio at Village Recorders, my favorite studio in the world, tracking his new record. And that was pretty exciting. I got to bring all the basses there, and we had a full complement, 2 keyboard players, Alex Acuna on percussion, one of my heroes, Chad Wackerman on drums, John Mader on drums, and, tracking a record with all the guys, not like I do it here a lot, by myself, which is, we can talk about it, which is you need to do. And it's kind of the state of the business these days, but it's just great to be in the studio with a bunch of guys, trading ideas and coming up with a great version of the, the artist's song.
Carl was on the cover of what's the Union magazine, International Musician, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed reading that. And I used to get, I was on the email list of the Baked Potato. And, I'm in Michigan, so how often can I get over there? But I used to see his name a lot. I think Stu Hamm used to do a lot of work with him too, didn't he?
Well, Stu actually subbed for me on one tour. I couldn't make one of the tours. So Stu did one tour with Carl. And that was basically it. And that's the only one I've ever missed. But speaking of the Baked Potato, we're actually playing there next month with Carl. So we call it the Spud. And we play there maybe every 3 months. And it just, it's just such a classic place. And
yeah, I took my son there when my son was, I think, about 11. And we had flown it. So we're 3 hours. Our bodies think it's 3 hours later because we came from the Eastern time zone and we couldn't get into the early show. So the show started like 11 or something, which was like 2 a.m. for us. But I took him to see Abe Laboriel and like Greg Matheson and I think Michael Landau and Jim Keltner. And
Yeah.
I don't regret that at all. We were tired, but who cares, right?
The good news is we finally convinced the owners of the Baked Potato to start earlier. So now we do 8 o'clock and 10:30 shows, because, 9:30 start is even tough for us. It's like,
Well, let me tell you something. When I lived in Miami for 6 years, I used to do a lot of shows at the Copacabana. I could do another gig before that. I was the house bassist at the Hirschfeld Theater on Miami Beach. So those
wow.
shows would end, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock. I'd go straight over to the Copacabana. I'd take out my amp. It's still warm. And those shows didn't even start till like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I'd get home 4:30 in the morning. And I was a much younger man in those days.
Yeah, and then do it all over again the next day.
That's right, exactly. But the funny thing is, we'd go to Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia. But when we played in LA, we had to be done. I guess it was a union thing or something. The bars had to close at 2 o'clock, or the clubs closed at 2 o'clock. And
Yeah, it's a
2 o'clock and we're all done already. Wow.
I know it's a state law for alcohol consumption that all bars have to close at 2 o'clock.
So nobody in California consumes alcohol after 2 a.m. ever.
And no, not a chance.
So other than this month-long tour, and that's great that you're getting out again and the people are enjoying it, you're enjoying it. What else is keeping you busy?
Well, thank God for home recording. I just finished a bunch of tracks for unknown people. A guy I've been watching, this songwriter, and then a couple of people in Europe that are really great songwriters. There's one up and coming young man named Lewis Thomas, he's about 24 years old. Just great guitar player, great singer. Kind of in the Eagles type of vibe. Oddly enough, even though he's German. So I just finished a couple of tracks for him, and fortunately, that's keeping me busy. Some live work on the weekends. I had my own show this last weekend at our club. We have a great venue here in Thousand Oaks called Bogies, and it's just an incredible sounding place. Only seats about 100 people, and I had 2 shows, and we sold out both shows. And I had a whole band with 3 singers and a horn section, and just doing our favorite pop covers: Steely Dan, Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Bruno Mars, whatever. Just a fun thing.
There was a jam session I used to go to. Was it Thousand Oaks? Maybe it wasn't. Do you remember? Have you ever heard of? It was a drummer named Mouse, and it was Mouse and the Toy Band.
The Toy Band. Where was that?
It wasn't quite that far out. It was maybe Calabasas or
yeah. I just remember the early years of the Flying Jib. In the house band was Neil Steubenhouse and Vinnie Colaiuto, David Garfield, I believe. Just all the great guys.
I was
there.
I
got to sub for Steubenhouse a couple of times, and but those things don't quite exist right now for some odd reason. I mean, it's too bad, but that's the state.
Yeah. I mentioned Gino Vanelli, and and you mentioned Alex Acuna, so I'm tying those together. Do you know Damien Erskine?
I met Damien one time. My wife and I happened to be up in Portland, and I saw that Gino was playing, and he had a brand new band. And so I contacted his brother Ross. I said, Ross, can you just get me a couple tickets? I'll pay for him, whatever, but I just want to surprise Gino. I haven't seen him in 10 years or whatever. And Damien was playing, and the band was just stellar. And I think it was their first show. And so I met him that night after the show, and he didn't know my name, but I said, well, I know what you're going through working with Gino as a bass player and how demanding he is, because I did the Brother to Brother tour. And then we just bonded instantly. But Damien Erskine is, one of my favorite young guys. He's just brilliant all the way around.
Yeah, he is. He's a great player, great guy. I'm trying to remember how long ago I interviewed him. He came through Michigan. I think it was Gino, but So the connection, obviously, with Acuna was with Peter Erskine and Weather Report, and that's if I seem disjointed, that's how.
Well, the reason my connection with Alex Acuna, right before Gino, I was on tour. My first big tour was with the Mark Allman Band, which was an English kind of blues, jazz, rock band.
Remember,
and for 3 nights we opened for Weather Report. And we would finish our show, and all the crazy English guys in the band would go out and get drunk. And I stood at the side of the stage and watched Weather Report for 3 nights because I love Weather Report. It happened to be Alex and Jocko. And I was just beside myself for 3 nights that I could be that close to that type of genius, you know. And then you fast forward, I become established as a studio musician in town, and I work with Alex all the time. And it's like, even last week, I mean, I've known him for years. I just pinch myself that I'm working with one of my heroes, you know, and he is the most humble, sweetest guy. Another one of my heroes is Abe Laboriel. Oh. And we are very close friends, even though obviously we'd never be on a gig together, but we are like brothers. I mean, yeah. Just an amazing guy.
He is. He's such a true gentleman, and he's helped me out a lot. And his son's got a pretty good gig.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Paul McCartney.
Right.
Tell me about your gear: basses, strings, amps, effects. What are you using these days?
Well, there's a lot of new news. We'll start with Mark Bass amps. You know, I've been with them since almost the beginning for them, and I can't remember how long it's been, but they are just so supportive. But I just ordered they have these new super lightweight cabs with different types of drivers in them, and I just ordered a couple actually yesterday. They're going to be sending them out, so I'm really excited for that. So I, just been a long time Mark Bass guy. They're always incredible wherever you go, and fortunately a lot of the backline companies are using them now. So if you do a fly date on the weekend, there's usually a good chance you can get a Mark Bass head. And if you can't, sometimes I just bring their little micro F1 amp, throw it in my suitcase, and I've used that thing with an SVT 610 cab, and it just, I'm still getting about half of my sound, but who doesn't like an SVT cab?
Absolutely. I still have my Walter Woods amp that I bought in 1980. It's like 3 feet away from me right now.
I had one for the longest time, and once I got hooked up with Mark Bass, I stopped using it. I ended up selling it. And then also in the last couple of years, being a crazy young guy, I used to race motorcycles, and I completely tore up this shoulder when I was about 18 years old. And now it's coming back to haunt me. So I have limited range in my left hand. So I'm starting to use shorter scale basses. Mm-hmm. I'm still using the music, my voice on the bass is a Music Man bongo. Yes. Kind of changed my life when they came out, just about everything about the sound, the way it feels. But 34-inch scale. So on a long gig, I really can't use those basses anymore. I can use them in the studio, shorter show. So I've been going to shorter scale. So Paul Leray, this great French luthier, came out with this bass. See if you can see it. Yeah. He calls it a travel bass, but it's 30-inch scale. It weighs about 7 pounds, 5-string. Where have you ever heard of a 7-pound 5-string? Yeah. And it's just magic. I mean, it's a big boy bass. It does not have a small sound. It does everything I want it to do, and it's just incredible. Okay. And it fits in a guitar case. So if you travel and you got to, put it'll fit in the overhead like a guitar on the airplane, whereas most of the other basses will not. There's a builder in Italy named Burt Bacharach, and Bruno. Just incredible craftsman. Michael League's been using one of his P basses for the last couple of years. And we met, and I told him my need for a shorter scale bass. So this is a 32-inch bass.
Wow.
and all hand built. It's a prototype, but they're going into production. And I helped him design it. We designed it over the computer with a CAD program, and we made it, over a couple of weeks and some very long telephone calls. We decided, and then got Kerry Nordstrand pickups. I'm a big fan of anything he does.
Yeah.
So this bass has been incredible. So it's a fretless, and the B string is unbelievable. People say you can't make a shorter scale bass and the B string work, and it's just incredible.
People try to be kind when it's got its own special kind of thump.
Well, some of them do. I mean, I've got a couple of more I'll show you, but and one of the ones, when you talk about the thump, I'm sure you're familiar with this, the Nordstrand cat bass, a Synanox.
Nice.
That carry. So this is the tribute to the Goya Panther, which Abe Laboriel, when he moved here from Mexico, Abe recorded with a Goya Panther.
Wow.
That was Abe's main bass, a cheap Italian bass. So Kerry recreated this bass, and I'll tell you, it's magic. Sean Hurley's using them. Michael Rhodes, all the Nashville guys. Most of the studio guys have these, and they buy two of them because they're only $900.
Wow.
And they have one with flats and one with rounds. I just have one with flats, and to me, it's as if a P bass and a Hofner were morphed together.
Wow.
It's got, yeah. I mean, I say no more, right? And it's got all these push buttons that change the pickup configuration. It's just like the original, and it's pretty great. Short scale, 30-inch. So that's been my main focus for gear. When I go in the studio, I bring a tube preamp from Mark Bass, and I use that, and I make it a little bit dirty. And then on the other, I always go with 2 tracks. I have a Useful Arts really high-end preamp, which is my clean sound.
Okay, because I guess you're not using the bass switch anymore. What was that guy's name? Rupert, right?
Oh yeah, I use the bass switch in my live pedal board.
Rupert,
because
Jacques Rupert. That's his
Jacques
name.
Rupert. Yeah, brilliant stuff. I use that in my pedal board and his compressor, and it's still like it's the centerpiece of the pedal board. Everything hooks into that. I'm always going between fretless and fretted bass, so you just hit a button, and you can have separate EQs. I know it's no longer in production, but I had 2 of them.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what kind of strings do you use?
It's always been Ernie Ball.
Okay, because the last, 2012, I said, tell me about your gear, and you said Music Man, Ernie Ball, Mark Bass, Bass Switch, DI.
I mean,
stick with what works.
When it works, you don't fix it.
I want to ask you about some advice for someone who wants to learn bass. And I want to give you a little context, because I had asked you about it in the previous interview, but it was more in the context of a career-oriented kind of bass player. And I want to ask you now in the context of the people that are coming to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. You heard me mention over 50, and a lot of that also comes with arthritis, tendonitis, shoulder pain, neck pain, recovering from surgery. And also mentioned short scale, medium scale basses. A lot of people are trying those because they say they're easier on the hands. And, they're not trying to be, they're not trying to set the world on fire. They're not trying to be career bass players, session players, whatever. They just want to play some classic rock riffs and some blues shuffles, maybe some funk R&B, and they just want to have some fun, either playing with other people, or a lot of them just like to play by themselves. They just like to learn bass. So in that context, what advice do you have for somebody like that who wants to learn bass? What do you think is important for them to be thinking?
Well, I think it's always important to get with a teacher in the beginning. Somebody that at least will give them the correct hand positions to get started. Let's just take reading music out of the out of the picture at this time. So no reading, because people are so afraid of that. And if the guy's just going to be playing with some buddies, it's maybe not necessary. But to get started, I think you need to have a good quality teacher. There's some great online stuff. I'd still like to see, person to person to start with. But there's so many, such great software. I use it all the time. It's called, it's on my iPhone. It basically, you can take any song in your library and pull out the bass, or you can pull out the drums, whatever. And that's a great tool to practice to. You can take the simplest song, a ZZ Top to a song with one chord, and you can play along with it. And I think that's a really great, useful tool. I use it all the time. Just sometimes I like to play bass every day. And so I'll just pick an old pop tune or something, a Rush tune or whatever, and take the bass out and play along, and see what I would do with that song, And then you can put the bass back in and reference the original guy. So I think it's called Stems, STEMZ. And it's a $10 iPhone app. Brilliant stuff. And then that, most of these guys, in their 50s, they've got buddies that play that. Just get a garage band going. It's so valuable to be playing with other people. Comes with its ups and downs, depending on but it is. That's why I like getting started with something like a Stems, because that the time is going to be good, the drums are going to be solid. And you're not fighting maybe another guy of your level on drums that doesn't have great time set yet. It'll help build your time. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I agree, because with my lessons at ForBassPlayersOnly.com, after they watch me on the video playing it at full tempo and then slower, then they have audio backing tracks that they could practice along with, one with the bass and one without the bass, with variable speed controls.
Oh, well, you have that option.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'll have to check that out too. You never stop learning. I mean, I went to a concert last week. Mark Lettieri, the guitar player with Snarky Puppy, he's off on his own now, and a lot of his stuff he plays with a baritone guitar, super funky. His bass player, his whole band was just incredible. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never heard their music, but this bass player, I'm guessing he was in his mid-20s. He sat down, and the tone and the feel that this guy got, I mean, it was just, and I wrote down his name because I bet nobody knows who it is. His name is Wes Stevenson. And people should check him out. He just blew my mind. Musicality, all the groove. He didn't take a solo till the last piece, and he just slayed it.
I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that, because to hear some 20-something, I thought you were going to say he had these incredible chops, and that's cool, but that's not what's important. That's not what people want in a bass player. So you raised.
No, he was so. I mean, he just spoke to me because that's the way I play. I mean, I'm known for my great whole notes and half notes. The power of a whole note is so huge, and I got that from Burt Bacharach. Because one night I worked with him for about 4 years, and just talking about his songwriting, I loved his songwriting and what he expected about bass players. And he said, so many bass players come in and they're just so busy. He says, you can just play a whole note and listen to the lyric and then decide whether you need to add something else. Because you don't, and of course, create space. We've all talked about that. What's the groove? Well, the groove's maybe not the notes you play, it's the ones you leave out.
This is great stuff. I've interviewed Leland Sklar, I don't know, 3-4 times. And the last time he said, I can do a whole hour on just whole notes, just talking about this, what you
There you
just
go.
just playing. And what a lot of people don't think about is not just the attack of the note, but the release of the note. And I said, you don't want it to be crunchy. That's the word I use, crunchiness. You don't want any crunchiness. You've got to play it nice and clean and release it nice and clean. So
You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
there you go.
You know, there's a million ways to play a quarter note. It's just, you know, do you release it when the snare hits, or do you let it ring through? And yeah, and you still learn.
What would you be if you weren't a bass player?
Well, for many years I was a woodworker. Still love it. I had actually a complete shop. So between woodworking and also I restore old cars. So I might have been in one of those businesses.
Well, this is great catching up, and let's try not to wait another 11 years before we do it again.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you for giving me this call, and thank you for everything you do for the bass community. You know, it's really great that the interviews and all the other stuff that happens on For Bass Player Only. It's just really great.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I appreciate your kind words.
Okay.
Good luck to you. Let's wrap it up here. Thanks so much to our special guest, Dave Marotta. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman of ForBassPlayersOnly.com. A lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for people over 50 who want to learn bass, because I believe you're never too old and it's never too late to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. ForBassPlayersOnly.com. That's what we're all about. I will see you all next week right here, same time, same place on ForBassPlayersOnly.com. In the meantime, let's play bass.